This is James from Good Looking Corpse. I don't normally record my own voice on this channel. I normally just put music that I've made, but I've decided to break that rule because I recently had an experience that I think it might help some other people to know about. Specifically, I think it might help musicians, whether amateur or professional, who are looking to distribute their music on the internet. As many of you probably know, if you want to get your music onto platforms like Spotify or Apple Music, you don't you don't do that directly. You don't load it directly. You have to find a distributor. And a distributor is a business which takes music from musicians and then does the job of uploading it to Apple Music and uh, other Spotify and similar channels. And I recently changed my distributor because the distributor that I had used to have a completely free program, which they got rid of. And I wanted a completely free program because the amount of money that I can expect to make didn't justify a paid program, even the cheapest paid program. So I found SoundOn, which is associated with TikTok, and initially it looked pretty good. It seemed to have a lot of tools for automatically adjusting the volume of your music or of my music, and it seemed to be pretty easy to use. Um, the trouble started when I got a message that said that they couldn't distribute one of my albums because the art that I was using was copyrighted. And I knew that that wasn't true because I had taken this artwork from an AI art generating website. I hadn't generated it myself, but I'd got it from a site which stores lots of AI generated artwork. And AI generated artwork is always in the public domain. It's free for anyone to use. So even if someone else happened to have used that exact same picture for their album cover, there would be no legal problem with that. So I wrote back to them or emailed them back saying, no, I don't think this is copyright. It's a public domain image. It's an AI generated image. Here's the link to prove that it's on a site for AI generated artwork. And I just got a message back that seemed to be exactly the same as the initial message. And I wrote back again, and I got another message which seemed to be exactly the same again. And I realized that I wasn't dealing with a human being. And in fact, I tried to explain what was happening in sort of different ways with different wording. And I don't think that I ever got through. I'm 99% sure that no human ever saw this exchange. So they just weren't going to distribute this album of mine, at least not using the artwork that that I had chosen, and that was that. They weren't going to look at it. They weren't going to even sort of hear what I had to say. And in fact, I had the same message for several different albums. In fact, the majority of the albums that I put on there got this same message, and I had this same problem of, look, no, they're not, explaining what was happening and not getting any answer back, except just getting basically the same message again and again. I'm not sure that I have ever spoken to a human being at SoundOn, despite having several problems. I had this problem that I couldn't upload particular albums. I had another problem that I wanted to take the one album that was on there off so that everything could be on the same distributor. And they eventually said, we're not going to do that until the album has been up for at least a year, because that's what it says in the contract. Um, so legally, that's, if that's that's what it says in the contract, fair enough. But that is a thing that I think a lot of people wouldn't have noticed. So I've got this album that they're distributing, even though I don't want them to, for at least a year. They did say at least a year. They didn't say we'll take it down after a year. They said we're not going to take it down until it's been up for at least a year. So sort of implying, and we might not even, when you get back to us, we might not even take it off, which is not a big. That's not a big problem, but it's sort of stuck in my craw after the other stuff. That's not really the main issue. The main issue is that they just wouldn't let me explain that they had made a mistake and that I wasn't using copyrighted artwork. Something that I think could have been sorted out very easily had a human being ever become involved on the other side. The latest thing that I did was wrote to them and said, "Can you change the cover of the one album that you're keeping on your distributor? Can you change it to this better cover that I've made?" And I got a response, and it was in Indonesian. I assume because Indonesia is near my home country of Australia, and they've misfiled some IP address so that they think my IP address is from Indonesia. That would be my guess as to what happened, as to what's happened. I wrote back to them saying, "Can you write back to me in English, please?" Yes, I could have used Google Translate and I could have written back to them in Indonesian, but honestly, I didn't feel like going the extra mile after my previous experiences. Also, because they'd said, "Oh, can you send me the name of the song and the UPC, which is the sort of the serial number or the product code of the album?" And I had given them the name of the album and the product code in the email. So I'd obviously given it to them, and they just hadn't looked at it because their automatic message was, "Make sure to send us all this stuff." So I wrote back to them and said, "I've already given you the product code. I've already given you the file. And also, can you write back to me in English?" And they wrote back to me in Indonesian with exactly the same message. So thus far, they haven't done a single thing that I asked them to do. I would have had exactly the same results had I not ever tried to contact them. And I don't think that I have contacted them. I think all I've done is interacted with a really quite inadequate AI system for finding keywords, I guess, and then responding to those keywords. And perhaps it's the case that it's to do with sort of how important you are. Like, I'm not making a lot of money. I can see how even having one person respond to me might end up sort of costing them more than I'm bringing them in. But most musicians are really in that same position, right? Most of us are on the bottom. So even if they don't treat everyone this way, they are going to be treating the vast majority of people this way. And if you're a musician listening to this and thinking about getting your music distributed, you're probably in the same category as me, right? I know of a lot of much better musicians than me, and much more experienced and well-established musicians and YouTubers than me, who also say that they really don't make a lot of money from distributing, right? So there's a lot of room down here at the bottom. So even if they sort of treat some people better, you, the listener, statistically, you're probably not going to be one of those some people. So it's a very frustrating experience. I mean, in money terms, it hasn't cost me a great deal of money because there's not a lot of money involved in me, distributing my music. It's really just fundamentally something I'm doing as a hobby. But it has been very frustrating, and so I thought I'd put this out here to warn people. Of course, if you have a different experience, well, that's great, and I'm not going to try and say that I'm more typical than you. I would predict that I was, but if you're happy with their service, then fine. But I'm just saying that if you are looking around for a distributor, you know, you might want to bear this in mind. So I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you. I will hopefully be returning to the music from now on.